about King Saul and his reign, and then David and Goliath, and then into King David. A little bit of, Samuel's talked about a little bit. He's more of just the prophet in the situation, but we're going to focus more on like King Saul and the battles between him and David. So in chapter 15, it starts on, first of all, the people, at that time, Israel, like before this time, Israel just had judges. They had like seers, which were prophets, and they never had kings. Well, the people wanted to become more like other people and have a king to reign over them. Samuel told them that that's not what they needed, and God told them that's not what they needed to, but they didn't listen. They still wanted one. So Saul was the one that was placed in that position, and then let's go to chapter 15, and this is kind of where Saul starts to fall away from the will of the Lord. It's verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both men and women, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together, and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 footmen, and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to a city of Amalek, and waited and laid wait in the valley. And Saul said unto the Kenites, Go, depart ye, get you down from among the Amalekites, whatever, lest I destroy you with them, for ye shewed kindness to all the children of Israel. When they came up out of Egypt, so the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until the comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse they destroyed utterly. Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he is turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. So basically, the Lord tells Saul to do something, and he does it, but he doesn't do it in complete obedience. He gets rid of everything that's basically vile and filthy, but the Lord wanted him to get rid of everything, and he didn't do that. And it says, in something that kind of had me thinking was in verse 11, it says, It repenteth me. God said that. It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king. And I kind of did some research, and in the Old Testament, repenteth isn't the same as in the New Testament saying of repent. It's more of it besieged me. Like he knew that the Lord didn't repent of what he was saying. He just knew that Saul had done wrong in his eyes, and he didn't like that. And basically this is kind of where Saul starts to fall out of the law of the Lord and out of the line of God. Let's go down to verse 22. And it says, Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of the rams. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. Obedience is better than sacrifice, to the Lord. Sacrifice is good, and we need to have sacrifices in our life, but obedience is so much more important to the Lord. And one of the reasons, let's go to verse 24. One of the reasons that Saul did the things that he did was because he was afraid of the people, and he listened to the people more than he listened to God. And even though he was the king, and when you get into a place of leadership, you tend to, that's what a lot of you hear a lot of people, and they hear what the people say, and they want to make the people happy. So rather than sticking with their own beliefs, they try to say this and that is okay. And that's kind of what Saul did. And he said in verse 24, And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. So he feared the people, and in that word fear, he probably wasn't like scared of what the people would say, but more of how the people would react to him, because he was the first king of Israel, so they probably had a lot of expectations for him. They probably had high hopes and high dreams, and he didn't want to disappoint them. So rather than, he thought that listening to a portion of what the Lord said and not doing all of it would be satisfactory, but it definitely wasn't in the Lord's eyes. And then in verse 35, go down to verse 35, and Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. And like I said, he didn't repent. It was all a part of God's plan, but he knew that, the Lord just knew that was wrong, and he fell out of the obedience of God. So the Lord was no longer in his favor. And then in the very next chapter, it says the choice of David is to be king. So David is basically anointed to be king, but he's not going to be king for another couple of chapters. And let's go to the next chapter. Let's see, chapter 16. Let's go to verse 12. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. So basically what happens in this chapter is David